there are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?"
I'm looking forward to this, guys. I really am. For a couple reasons. Number one, and number two, yeah, both those. So, after my meditation every day, the birds start chirping, and it's time for me to delve into talks and randomly open the book into some amazing talks with a realized master, and to get inspired and to take you on that journey with me. So we're going to start right now. Get right to it. Check the levels. Check the internal levels for the absolute equilibrium, the perfect balance. And we'll start with this. So here we go once again on the journey, on the divine journey here, into the unknown, just feeling our feet on the ground, wherever you are, and feeling the tingling, the tips of your fingers. Go ahead and bring your mind there now. Bring your mind to the tips of your fingers. And do you feel the tingling going on in your fingertips? It's like when I first was told to do this, I couldn't believe it. I'd never put my mind into my body like this and really focused. And when you do, you can feel there's a lot going on. There's a lot of sensations. Usually we try to avoid those sensations, but just feel your feet on the ground. Feel that tingling in your fingers and sink into this moment with me. Because you're not going to get the benefit of what we're doing here unless you sink into this moment. If you don't have time for it now, it's okay. If it's not the right time, it's okay. But if it is, go ahead and just sink in with me. We're going to be listening to the silence between the words, in the midst of the words. But I want to have you focus on the silence in between the words. Because there's a lot of juice there. Most of the time we're taught to look at solid objects. I want to teach you, or remind you, not teach you, you can't be taught, to look at what most people don't look at. For instance, if you're writing on a piece of paper, instead of look at the writing, look at the paper instead of the writing. To look at what most people don't look at. Without the paper, the writing couldn't exist. When you're in a room, instead of looking at the objects in the room, look at the space. There's so much space. It's amazing. Likewise, in this little journey, I want you to focus on the silence in between the words, as I will. The silence in between the words have so much juice, so much richness. If you're looking for some kind of words to make you feel better, I hope I can do that. But the silence is the real teacher. It's the real medicine that's going to make you feel the best. Because what we really want is that silence. It's a silent mind, a silent heart. And although we've experienced that little pieces, bits and pieces in our life, any way we can get inspired to listen to that silence is a good thing. After you get something you wanted, you'll feel that silence, because the mind is at peace for just a little while. until it wants something else. When you've attained what you wanted, that peace is found. But don't wait. Don't wait to get what you want. Take your peace now. The peace is here now. The state of not wanting anything is here now. We're just listening to the silence. Noticing. It's the same thing with noticing the silence in between your own thoughts. You watch your mind, and you notice thoughts come and go, and you don't try to stop them. But you just notice the silence in between the thoughts more than the thoughts themselves. There's always a space. That space is always there. Matter of fact, even when the thoughts are there, the silence is there. The silence is the space in which the thoughts appear and disappear. The silence doesn't disappear. The silence is always there. We notice it when the thoughts or the words are gone. But it's the underlying foundation of where thoughts come from and disappear out of, where words come from and disappear out of. But we've been taught to look at the thoughts and the words, not the silence. We've been trained to look at the augmented, the noticeable. And so we're switching this training back to looking at what's not noticed. You're watching a movie, instead of noticing the screen, the movie's changing on the screen, you notice the screen. You notice the place that gives it a place to project, that gives the movie a place to be. Likewise, the silence is always available and always here. So what is it that makes us not want to tune into the silence? That's the question. What is it? Just the habit of the mind, the habit of wanting, the habit of acquiring or attaining? Because think about it, when you get what you want, how long does it last? It's nice for a little bit, isn't it? But if I have to wait to get what I want to feel peace, then my whole life will be a series of wanting more, wanting something else, never quite being content with what I have. You can't rely on anyone else to sink into the silence. It's the silence within you. The peace within you. And if you want to taste more of this peace, it requires a little bit of effort, a little bit of attention. Just like anything you've wanted in this world. Anything you've studied, any desire you've had that you've had to work for, it's going to require a little bit of work. And it's going to start with concentration of mind. Taking your mind to one point, and it doesn't matter what that one point is. It can be a dot on your screen of your computer. It can be a picture of your dog. Can be the sound of your breath. But stay there at that one point, whatever it is for you. I always go back to the breath, coming in and out of the nose. because whether I focus on it or not, it's always there. The air changing from cool to warm. Warmer as I exhale, cooler as I inhale. Take the time to do this in your life. I'm not telling you to do it right now. I'm saying if you want to taste peace more in your life, you have to take the time to learn concentration of mind instead of scattered mind, instead of radio always playing mind, instead of random wants and random thoughts and random needs and running around after this and that. Take the time, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, and make it a goal to do 30 days, 40 days, every day, and notice the difference. Matter of fact, I guarantee if you do this for 10 minutes a day for 40 days, you will notice more peace in your life. And if you really apply yourself to doing this 10 minutes a day, I guarantee it'll be the most worthwhile 10 minutes of your day. If you really try this and really do it and you don't, you let me know. Don't worry about if your mind wanders. Bring it back to that one point, whatever that is for you. Bring it back. It's just learning, growing, experimenting, really. It's an experiment. This is an experiment. Do you want to experiment life? Do you want to experiment with your own consciousness? You want to experience everything else in life? Why not experience our own consciousness? Experiment with our own consciousness, the source of our energy. We want to know about everything on the outside, but why don't we ever want to know about everything on the inside? What is it? It's the strangest thing to me. It's like we're born blind. We're born with a destiny to escape, and then at some point the universe forces us to look. Some earlier than others. I'm sure there's been times in your life the universe has forced you to look. Broke your leg, the universe is saying stop. Slow down. Signs are everywhere. You see them. There's always signs. Just have to learn to read them, to notice them, and to learn from them, and to move on. Sometimes I wonder what is it or where does the energy come from that energizes the mind? What is the energy that energizes the mind? Where does it come from? And so I start tracing that back. Instead of projecting the mind outwards, I project the mind inwards. You're looking. Eyes opened or closed, you're looking. Noticing, where does this power called mind come from? That creates my world, that creates me. Who am I without a thought? The whole world is created with a thought. So wouldn't we want to know where that thought comes from and what gives it its power? And I open the book. To not get spoiled by thinking about the non-self with your mind, hold tightly to yourself and attain peace. What is the non-self? The non-self is anything that can be thought about, perceived, believed, understood. Don't get spoiled by thinking about the non-self with your mind. Hold tightly to yourself and attain peace. Hold on to the path of holding on to the one that has no attachments. Hold on to the path of holding on to the one that has no attachments. By holding on to this path of holding on, you rid yourself of those attachments that hold you to the world. Hold on to the path of holding on to the one that has no attachments. He's saying within you right now, there's something inside that has no attachments already. It's not about letting go of attachments or dealing with your attachments. No, there's already something inside that's already free from attachments. You're just tuning into that already has no attachments. Hold on to the path of holding on to the one that has no attachments. By holding on to this path of holding on, you rid yourself of those attachments that hold you to the world. By holding tightly to the one that has no attachments, your attachment to the non-self will go away. When this is gone, holding tight to the one that has no attachments will also cease, and all attachments will come to an end. This is a different way of looking at things, isn't it? Most of the time we say, I've got these attachments, I've got to, they're attached, I have this problem, I'm always clinging to these things. But what Ramana is saying here is this. There's something that's already free of attachments. The true self has no attachments. We're just giving our attention to the wrong self all the time. And here he calls that self the non-self. Concepts, beliefs, opinions, etc. Because we're so enamored with holding on to the non-self, we cannot see the self. It's like the story of the snake and the rope. Do you see the snake or the rope? You can only see one at a time. If you think that rope's a snake, you're going to be afraid. And if you see that snake is a rope, you're going to laugh at it, pick it up. But you can't see both at the same time. You only see one or the other. Likewise, Ramana is saying here, you either see the self or the non-self. You're either giving your attention to the self or the non-self. But all that's required is to not give your attention to the non-self, and the self is already there. The one with no attachments is already there, the self. By holding tightly to the motionless self and taking it as one support, the mind will become free of agitation. Now we're clinging to that self or that within us that has no attachments. And by clinging to that, everything else falls away. And he says, so what is thinking of the self? Thinking of the self is to abide in that tranquil consciousness. The consciousness that cannot be remembered or forgotten. Reach for the self, the land of consciousness, the reality, which is your own country, and shun the residence in foreign land. Here he's saying that this true self is our refuge and it's our only home. And the non-self is a foreign land, a foreign place that we'll have to leave at some point. Unless you clearly know your real nature by remaining firmly established in self-abidance, you will get enmeshed in creation and become bewildered. You'll become confused. Confusion itself is the non-self. Confusion itself is the non-self. If these words are confusing you, you're in the non-self. Let it go. Let that non-self go. Come back. This isn't something you understand with your mind. This isn't something you get or don't get. This is called the self. This is a chapter called the self. Big S self. Investigate and realize that from the very beginning you possess as your very own nature the self that you are journeying to attain. So when people are out to attain God realization or truth or whatever you want to call it, he's saying, realize that from the very beginning you already possess as your own nature that. It's important to remember that it's not something to be gotten from the outside or attained. It's something that's already there. It's just the noticing I was talking about at the beginning of the talk. Noticing the unnoticed. Remember? Noticing the space instead of the objects. Noticing the paper instead of the writing. Noticing the screen instead of the movies. Same. It's a noticing. Paying attention to what's normally not paid attention to. The removal of objectified consciousness is attainment or recognition of your own self. So objectified consciousness is anything that you can understand, anything that you can conceive of, believe in, anything that you can see, thoughts, body, feeling. So when all that stops, even for a moment, like we were doing in the beginning, noticing the silence, you're starting to tune into the self, to the peace. There is no other mistake like objectified consciousness that ruins your bliss. Constantly constantly mystified by objects. The reason why it becomes different from you, or it appears different, is only because your forgetfulness to tune into that self. So the difference between the non-self and the self is like the difference between the personal self and the true self. The you that you can understand and the you that you can't understand, but you know. If I ask you, do you exist? You don't need a thought to go there. Do you exist? The place you go to know that doesn't require a thought. You know you exist. You know that you are. But keep coming back to that place. And if you can't, start with the concentration practice. Focusing on the breath, focusing on that one point. Because if you don't see the difference between the small self and the big self, it's okay. But you have to start focusing on the breath, focusing on that one point. So you can see the paper, so you can see the screen, so you can see the space, instead of seeing the writing, the movie, or the objects. It's like the fish that doesn't know what water is, doesn't understand what water is, and is in it its whole life. This is the simplicity of being, the simplicity of seeing, or turning towards the seer instead of the seen, the knower instead of the known, and the thinker instead of the thoughts. The place that gives room to appear and disappear into and out of. The bliss between the thoughts, the peace between the words. This. One moment at a time, one moment at a time, this. Coming back to this. Your love, your home, the place you know inside is the same, a sameness. A retraining, a reprogramming to look at the unseen, the unnoticed. Do you want to notice? Do you want to see? Do you want peace that doesn't stop? That's always the same. Remember, this isn't about understanding or not understanding, or knowing or not knowing, or agreeing or not agreeing. This is about the space that's aware of all that. The space that's aware of your thoughts right now, that's aware of your body, that's aware of the objects around you, awareness itself, and the love affair. Most of the talks I give are about this love affair, to remind myself of the self, to remind myself to stop in between, that what I seek in attainment of things is complete now and here, in that silence of the heart, in that silence of the mind, in the stillness of the soul. Here we are. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Thanks for being here with me. I appreciate it, because whoever's listening out there is inspiring me to do this. So this is all this is a reminder for myself to stop, listen. I don't read too many verses from this because it's not necessary. It's not about knowing more or more verses or more study or more practice. It's about one moment at a time, staying. And those moments will increase. The more love you give to it, they'll merge together. And your life will turn into pure peace. Pure peace.